Hello, how's everybody doing? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a video on one question for each UFC champion. I have one question for all 8 UFC champions. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting out with the flyweight champion in Joshua Van. How will he do against a pressure grappler? Of course, that question was supposed to be answered on UFC 323 against Alessandro Pantoja, but of course, in the first 15 seconds, Alessandro Pantoja broke his arm, dislocated his arm, so of course, we didn't get to see that. That was one of the biggest heartbreaks of last year. Joshua Van is most likely, actually not even most likely, I completely forgot. He is booked against Tatsuro Taira for his next fight in UFC 327 in Miami. So the question will be forced to be answered there because Tatsuro Taira is a very heavy pressure grappler. He chains takedowns together really well. Good wrestler, great ground and pound, pretty fucking bad on the feet. So I would assume if I'm Tatsuro Taira, I do not want to stand with Joshua Van for more than 2 seconds, and I'm going to be like Khamzat Chimaev and shoot a takedown in the first 5 seconds of the fight. I'm very eager to see how he handles with both of them. And I know you can say, oh, well, he fought Ray Saruya, and he did just fine, and he stuffed his takedowns. Ray Saruya, with all due respect, is not the same level grappler that a Tatsuro Taira and an Alessandro Pantoja is. I don't even think I need to explain that, but just for the weird hardcores that are going in my comments, oh, well, actually, he fought this guy. And, oh, he fought Cody Durden. He fought Cody Durden. He's a good wrestler. Fuck off, dude. Okay? So, yeah. Who was next? Petr Yan. I don't know why I said who was next. Petr Yan. I put well-rounded question mark because if you look at Petr Yan's resume, he's never really fought somebody who is extremely well-rounded. And, of course, who I'm referring to when I say well-rounded is a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov, phenomenal on the feet, very good kicks, tremendous wrestler. He can easily wet blanket you. Petr Yan has shown that he can be taken down, of course, in plenty of his fights against Aljamain Sterling, against Merab Dvalishvili. I guess another question you could ask him is, oh, can you beat Merab in the trilogy? But I don't think that many people are going to be asking that question now because of the levels that he showed in the rematch, and there could be some merit to when he said that he was very injured in the first fight, and that's why he performed so poorly. Again, there could be some merit to that. I'm not going to prove or disprove that, because obviously he would know better than me if he was injured or not, obviously. But him facing a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov, while Umar has shown that he is beatable, I still think that he can very much beat Petr Yan because the guys that have shown that Umar is beatable are mainly guys that are big power punchers. Like Beksat Almakhan did crack him in the first minute of their fight and hurt him pretty badly. Mario Bautista also did the same thing. Not even that Mario Bautista is a big power puncher, but Petr Yan has negative power in his hands. He cannot hurt you on the feet. He has never hurt anybody on the feet outside of Uriah Faber, a 41-year-old Uriah Faber in what, 2019, maybe 2018. So Umar is a guy who has good power, one punch KO power. We saw that against Raoni Barcelos. So the danger factor will be there. And of course, he's a great wrestler, like I said. So I'm just pretty curious how Petr Yan is going to do against a guy like Umar. I probably would pick Petr Yan to win that fight, but that would just be a really, really interesting match. Alexander Volkanovski is next. Father Time question mark. That is the question that I have. Can he beat Father Time? There have been very few human beings in history to ever beat Father Time in any endeavor of human life, whether that's basketball, fighting, anything. Alexander Volkanovski is now 37 years old. His next fight will be either against Movsar Evloev or Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy also is kind of in Father Time as well. He's 35 right now. By the time they fight, he'll probably be 36 years old. Volkanovski will be 38. But as you get older, your body gets weaker, it deteriorates faster, you get injured easier, cutting weight is harder, and other aspects of your game do kind of take a nosedive. Maybe not an immediate nosedive, but they do take a nosedive. So I'm very intrigued and kind of scared to see how a guy like Alexander Volkanovski would fight against a guy like Movsar Evloev, because Movsar Evloev is an extremely strong, heavy pressure wrestler, one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Of course, we've seen Alexander Volkanovski stuff takedowns and also defend submissions against probably one of the best wrestlers in UFC history in Islam Makhachev, but that was also 3 years ago. This fight, if Movsar does win, that will probably be December at the latest or at the earliest. I could easily see that going into 2027. because they fight in April, I believe. Or maybe it's in May. I think they fight in May. And he's not the most active fighter, so I can see him wanting some time to get situated. So I can see that fight happening maybe in December, maybe the last pay-per-view of the year, maybe January, because a lot of the times early in the year they like to go to Australia. You know, January, February, March, those are the times that they go to Australia, so we could see that then. And like I said, Volkanovski will be 38 by that time. Maybe he is just getting some more nagging injuries, or he's just losing strength. He's not as strong as he once was when he was 33, 34. Maybe he's not as quick on the feet. Maybe his reflexes have gone down a little bit and he can't stuff takedowns as efficiently. Who knows with Volkanovski, and who knows what Father Time will do to you? Nobody ever will know until it actually hits you. So that is my question for Alexander Volkanovski. Next is Ilia Topuria. Pressure grappler. How can Ilia Topuria handle a pressure grappler like a guy like Arman Tsarukyan or Islam Makhachev? Of course, those are the only two intriguing matchups for Ilia Topuria in the entire UFC. Nobody could care less about the Justin Gaethje fight, or a Max rematch, or a Charles rematch now that Charles just won, or a Benoit fight if Benoit gets one or two more wins, a Paddy Pimblett fight. Nobody gives a fuck about that at all. And I'm just very, very interested to see how he is going to fight. Honestly, who his next fight is going to be, because of course he's going to start out Justin Gaethje in 2 minutes. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I know that MMA is a very unpredictable sport, but this should be one of the easiest predictions that you can make. He's going to start out Justin Gaethje in 2, maybe 3 rounds, and his next fight, it most likely will need to be Islam Makhachev, because number one, Dana White does not like Arman Tsarukyan, and he is pretty reluctant to give him a title shot after UFC 311 happened, after he, after he headbutted Dan Hooker, after he had that scrap with Giorgio Poulis, I think his name is, the wrestler. So he does not seem to be on Dana White's good side, so I can't really see him earning a title shot unless maybe they do a Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan rematch, and maybe he gets a finish there, or maybe he just beats him very definitively to the point where you cannot deny him a title shot. But it would honestly make a lot of sense if his next fight is Islam Makhachev. However, you are going to have Islam Makhachev agree to that, because there's been a ton of rumors that have been being sent around saying that Ilia Topuria accepted the fight and he signed the contract, but then Islam Makhachev pulled out because he broke his hand, or he had a hand injury, or he had another kind of injury, and they're just going back and forth on Twitter. Their managers are getting involved. Who really knows what is the truth behind closed doors? I would be pretty shocked to see if Ilia Topuria did not accept that fight, because Islam Makhachev was tweeting that, oh, we'll fight you for free. We're not going to give you those crazy demands that you were asking. I find it really hard to believe that Ilia Topuria would ask for a ton of money and this massive payday to fight in Islam Makhachev, because he literally went up to 155 for that exact reason, and he has made it clear ever since he joined the 155-pound division that he wanted to fight Islam Makhachev, and he's been calling him out for almost a year now. So I honestly, I do not believe Islam Makhachev's tweets that he's been sending out, but yeah, if Ilia Topuria fights Islam Makhachev at 170 pounds, I think there's a 95% chance that Islam Makhachev wins that fight. I mean, Ilia Topuria is my favorite fighter, but I can be realistic when you need to. There is a very, very slim chance that Ilia Topuria can win that fight. Maybe if you were to give him a year plus to bulk up to 170, then maybe I'll give him some kind of chance, but that's just not really realistic, and I just don't think that would happen. I think if Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev happens, it's going to be late 2026, early 2027. So I don't think this is going to be some fight that's a year, 2 years in the making. Honestly, I don't think this fight ever happens. I'm going to be honest with you. I do not think that this fight ever happens, as unfortunate as that is, and how badly I would love to see this fight. It's just not going to happen. It just seems like one of those fights that's going to be a what could have been, kind of like a Khabib versus Tony, little fights like that. But yeah, again, I think he could I think he could pretty definitively beat in Arman Tsarukyan. I would reluctantly pick him, because Arman Tsarukyan's skill set does scare me as a Topuria fan, but I think he could get past that pressure grappler test in Arman Sarukian, but the real pressure grappler test would be against a guy like Islam Makhachev. And I think at 170 pounds, that is just too tall of a task for Ilia Topuria to complete. Islam Makhachev is next. And the question that I have is, how is he going to do against a big power puncher? Because historically, if you look at his resume, he has not really fought any big power punchers. Volkanovski is not one. Charles Oliveira kind of is. It's more so like TKO power. Dustin Poirier is not really a big puncher. I'm sorry, Dustin Poirier is a big puncher, but he's not a big puncher like he used to be. But also, you don't see Dustin Poirier just fucking one-punch dropping people, one-punch KOing people. Yeah, he did that to Benoit Saint-Denis, but anybody can knock out somebody if you just give him your chin on a silver platter. But Dustin Poirier does not just flatline people with one shot. He will tee off on you, and he'll drop you, and then he'll finish you on the ground. Renato Moicano is not a big power puncher. Like, Islam Makhachev historically is not fighting big power punchers. Jack Della Maddalena is not even really a big power puncher. He's a guy that has TKO power, that's sneaky power. But how would Islam Makhachev face against a big power puncher like an Ilia Topuria and a Michael Morales? Because those are the two names that could dethrone Islam Makhachev in the UFC. I don't think an Ian Gary will. I don't think a Shavkat Rakhmonov would. I don't think a Carlos Prates would. I guess you can also lump him into the power puncher conversation, but I think that would be a really easy test for Islam Makhachev to solve, because we have seen Carlos Prates get taken down and pretty easily by Ian Gary. I know that MMA math does not work, but if you're getting taken down by Ian Gary, you will absolutely be taken down by Islam Makhachev. I have no doubt in my mind. He is one of the smartest grapplers and smartest wrestlers in UFC history. So I also think he can beat a Michael Morales, because we did see Michael Morales get controlled against the fence against Neil Magny very recently. And again, MMA math doesn't always work, but if you're going to get controlled in the clinch against the cage against Neil Magny, what do you think Islam Makhachev would do for you? You know what I mean? So I think that's definitely a harder test for Islam Makhachev to pass, because he is much larger than Islam Makhachev is, and Islam has never really faced a guy who's larger than him. That honestly is another question that I could have posed. We've never really seen Islam Makhachev fight a guy that is just much bigger than him. And Michael Morales weighs 200 pounds minimum. He is an enormous welterweight with crazy one-punch KO power. And Islam Makhachev is definitely not shitty, but we have seen him react poorly to shots. Alexander Volkanovski rocked him. Of course, he's been knocked out before by Adriano Martins. I want to say there was another time that he got cracked. I mean, Dustin Poirier wobbled him a little bit, but not terribly bad. But I am just curious how he would face against a guy who can put your lights out, and also a guy who has the massive size advantage like Mike Morales. And also, I'm interested to see him fight a guy like Ilia Topuria, who is a power puncher and who is extremely well-rounded and did do really well against Charles Oliveira in the grappling. And I know that Charles and Islam Makhachev are very different levels of grapplers and a very different style of grapplers. But, I mean, Charles looked like a world beater against Max Holloway last week. And if that's any indication, then maybe Ilia Topuria has some success against Islam. Who's to say that he doesn't? So, you know, those are the two guys that I would just love to see him face in his career. But I don't think either of them are going to happen. Maybe the Morales fights happens in MSG in November, but I don't know. I think the real fight to make is against Ilia Topuria for sure, and I'm very upset that that fight fell out for the White House. Middleweight is next. Khamzat Chimaev. Of course, it's the health. I mean, there's really nothing else. Khamzat Chimaev is injured at a very concerning level, and it's also not even just injuries. It's also his immune system. He had long COVID back in the day. He was sick for a very long time. He was in the hospital. He had to pull out of the Whitaker fight the first time because of he was in the hospital and he was extremely ill. He's always injured. He's always breaking something. He's breaking his hand. He's fucking up his knee, his shoulder. There's always a problem with Khamzat Chimaev, and he can never stay healthy. Every single time he is maybe thought to return, and maybe he's going to fight this guy because the timelines kind of work, and this card is opening up, maybe he can headline it, something falls through and he can't do it because of his injuries, or he's sick, or he has Ramadan. Realistically, it's not even just health, it's just activity in general. It's the whole umbrella of activity and health injuries, other personal reasons fall under that umbrella, because obviously before, this is not as much of a problem now, but before there were questions that he could even fight in America. Now, of course, he did fight in America in UFC 319, but it seems like Khamzat Chimaev is reserved to Abu Dhabi cards for the most part. So just, again, like I said, the overall umbrella of activity is the biggest question for Khamzat Chimaev, because we have never seen a guy who is as dominant as him just do whatever he wants to all of these guys at the highest level. It's preposterous how skilled this guy is. And he's not just some lay and pray guy, even though that is what he showcased against Dricus du Plessis. He's a guy who's extremely well-rounded, had really good success in the striking against a Kamaru Usman on 10 days' notice. Of course, we've seen him spar Khalil Roundtree and just look like a beast. I know that's sparring, take it with a grain of salt, but also he still is showcasing his skill there. He has one-punch KO power. We've seen that. I mean, Khamzat Chimaev literally has it all, but there are just these factors that are keeping him out of the cage, and it's so upsetting because he's one of the most entertaining champions in recent memory, excluding the Dricus du Plessis fight, and all these things getting in the way is such a bummer for the fans and also for him as well, because I can only imagine that he would not want to deal with these ailments that keeps him out of the cage. Next is light heavyweight. Technically, Alex Pereira is still the champion, but his question is not related to any light heavyweights. It is, how will he deal with the size of the heavyweights that he will be fighting? Because, of course, Alex Pereira is fighting Ciryl Gane and for the interim belt on the White House card. Now, Alex Pereira is on record weighing 242 pounds. I want to say Ciryl Gane weighs 247. So, of course, there's not a massive difference, but their body composition is very, very different. I am just very curious how Alex Pereira would look against guys that are the heavyweight size, because if he does get past the Ciryl Gane test, which I think there's a good chance that he does, the next test would most likely be the Tom Aspinall test, who is a guy who is 6'5", naturally 260 pounds, incredibly light on his feet, has phenomenal movement. He moves like a middleweight at 260 pounds naturally. He's taller than Alex Pereira. He's stronger than him. He is just more of a physical beast, and he's more physically dominant and physically present than Alex Pereira is. So I'm just very curious how he would look against guys that are like that size. Now, I don't think the size is going to matter against a Ciryl Gane, because he's not one to use his size. He is a guy who moves preposterously well for the weight class. He, like I said, is extremely light on his feet, and he can kind of dance around and jab you up from range, and he'll throw that teep to the body, and he'll kind of crash in and out. He is a guy that is not going to be someone who's taking you down and using his top pressure to you know what I mean? Like, that's not how Ciryl Gane fights. He doesn't use his weight to his advantage. And Ciryl Gane also does not have crazy heavyweight power, whereas Tom Aspinall does. So I think he could and probably will get past the Ciryl Gane test. I don't feel extremely confident in picking him in that fight, but I think at the end of the day, I will pick him in that fight. But, you know, when he does get past that, I'm very curious how he's going to look against a guy like a Tom Aspinall, who's 260 pounds natural. And the final question, heavyweight division, Tom Aspinall, how are you going to look in round 2, 3, 4, and 5? I know that he went to a round 2 against Andrei Arlovsky, but that is the only time he's ever gone to a round 2 in the UFC. You know, like, even against a guy as good as Ciryl Gane, we didn't get to see that fight materialize because of the eye pokes. Another question I could have is about his health, because he is out for an indefinite amount of time, and we don't know when he's going to return because he got poked in the eye. He had the double eye surgeries. You know, he could not even compete this year. There's a chance he doesn't even compete this year. He is on record saying that he believes he'll fight in 2026. I mean, that's pretty fucking insane, because it's March. We have 9 more months of 2026, and he's not even 100% sure that he will compete. But I think the real question is, how is he going to look as the fight goes on? Because if he rematches Ciryl Gane and you get out of the first round and you go into round 2, 3, 4, and 5, how does his cardio look? Is he a guy that quits in fights? Again, that's obviously, I'm not really expecting that, but that's still a question that we don't know. Is he a guy that has a great chin? Because we have seen him get hit a lot in the very few moments in these fights that we've seen, he's a guy that historically has, bad boxing defense, and he backs up with his chin in the air, and he throws punches with his chin in the air. Who's to say that a Ciryl Gane doesn't crack his chin? We have no idea if he's chinny. We have no idea what his cardio looks like. We have no idea how he looks as the fight goes on. Does he slow down? Does he have a great gas tank? Can he still take you down in rounds 4 and 5? Is he still super dangerous in rounds 4 and 5? We don't know any of these questions. Also another question, can you get Ciryl Gane down? Because he only shot, kind of one attempt. Realistically two, but he did get eye poked on one of them. But he only shot one takedown attempt, and Ciryl Gane is known for having pretty inferior grappling. He's just not good at all. Alexander Volkov was taking him dodown pretty easily. Francis Ngannou, who is an underrated wrestler, but by no means a great wrestler, was having good success on the ground against him. And Tom Aspinall is supposed to be the guy to beat John Jones, because not only is he super dangerous on the ground, but super dangerous on the feet, but he's also really dangerous on the ground. So, against a guy with really good takedown defense, how do you look? Are you going to keep on shooting takedowns? Are you going to elect to stand with him? So there's so many questions about Tom Aspinall, which I'm very interested to see. And to be honest, I do still think that Tom Aspinall will beat Ciryl Gane, and I think he would have beat Ciryl Gane in the first fight. I think people are delusional when they say that Ciryl Gane was on his way to winning the fight when he landed 3 more strikes than him. I don't even know where that comes from. People lose rounds. It's not like if you lose the first round, you were just going to lose the fight. Because in that case, Petr Yan, if all of his fights got canceled out of the first round, he would be 0-20. Petr Yan drops every single first round. Corey Sandhagen took the first round against Merab, and then Merab fucking dominated him in the next few rounds. So it's not like Ciryl Gane cracked him and had him on wobbly legs, and he was out on his feet and he got saved by the bell. There was no signs of that at all. Tom Aspinall did not show any signs of slowing down. He was still extremely fast. He was still throwing kicks. He wasn't wilting against the cage. So I could make an entire video just ranting about the fucking disrespect and the lunacy that is spewed about Tom Aspinall, but I'm going to save that for another day because I don't want to raise my blood pressure right now. But those are the questions that I have for every single UFC champion. If you have a question or if you have anything else to say or add on, just put it right in the comments. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at VinceMMA1. Go to 3punchcombo.com. Use my code VinceMMA for a first free month. It will be linked in the description. And thank you very much for watching.